sighed, a soft, barely audible exhale that seemed to carry all the unspoken longings of my soul. As I stood in my garden, the cool morning air heavy with the scent of damp earth and blooming roses, the vibrant petals, their delicate colors just beginning to unfurl, had always been a source of comfort to me, a silent promise of new beginnings. But this year, even their beauty could not quite soothe the unrest that had settled deep inside of me, a restlessness that had taken root and was now starting to bloom. At 66 years old, after decades of living a life that had been carefully planned and precisely executed, I had finally reached a point where I thought I had left love behind, resigned to the notion that my heart would never again flutter with the reckless abandon of youth. I had been widowed for almost 3 years now, and my routine had become my refuge, a way to cope with the grief and the loneliness that had become my constant companions. My days were spent reading, gardening, walking my dog, and trying to create a sense of peace and tranquility, to make sense of everything that had happened to me and to all the choices that had led me to this moment. But lately, a longing had started to creep in, a whisper of desire and a craving for something more, a yearning for a connection that I had thought was lost forever. My life had always been so structured, so predictable, but then everything changed. When Ethan moved in next door, it was as if a whirlwind had come into my life, upending my routine and challenging everything that I thought I knew about myself and about the world around me. He arrived on a balmy, early spring day. The sun was casting long, warm shadows across the street when I heard the distinct rumble of an old truck pulling up into the driveway next door. Curiosity, a feeling that I had not experienced in a long time, compelled me to look up from my pruning, to see what all the commotion was about. It was then that I saw him. He was a young man, tall and lean, with a mop of unruly brown hair, bright green eyes that sparkled with mischief, and a smile that could light up an entire room. He was unloading boxes from the back of their truck, his movements vigorous and animated, a whirlwind of youthful energy that was both intriguing and a little intimidating. He had this energy about him, a carefree spirit that made my heart skip a beat as he radiated an effortless charm that seemed to fill the air around him. It was clear he was everything I was not, everything I was afraid of, and everything that, deep down, I had longed to feel once more. "Need some help?" I called out, unable to resist the urge to engage with my new neighbor, my voice surprisingly strong. It was a spontaneous decision. My heart was racing, and I felt like I had just crossed a line, as all the barriers I had placed around myself, to protect myself from the world, were starting to crumble. But something about his youthful energy sparked a flicker of something that I had long forgotten, a feeling of excitement, a sense of anticipation that had been buried under layers of routine, grief, and resignation. I had to know who he was, and I was ready to see what was waiting for me on the other side. His head snapped up, a surprised expression on his face, his bright green eyes making me gasp. His smile widened, teeth like pearls against his sun-kissed skin, his voice warm and full of youthful energy. Just getting settled in, he beamed back at me, his smile so contagious that it almost took my breath away. His eyes, so full of life, were looking directly into mine, and I felt a strange sense of connection, as if we had known each other in a past life. And his gaze sent a shiver down my spine, making me feel like a teenager again, all flustered, all nervous, all butterflies. "I'm Ethan," he said, extending a hand, his youthful charm disarming me even further, his hand so warm, so strong, so gentle. "I'm Claire," I introduced myself, feeling a bit flustered under his gaze, my body tingling with a warmth that I had not felt in years. Waved, trying to maintain a sense of composure, and he waved back, his smile making my heart skip a beat. The gestures were simple, almost perfunctory, but they felt loaded with a strange sense of promise, a sense of connection that was both exhilarating and a little bit terrifying. They were so simple, yet they seemed so loaded, so full of meaning, as if they were a promise of something more, something that I did not know how to handle. As I returned to my pruning, I was acutely aware of the bright, fresh-faced young man next door, the boy next door, whose presence lingered in my mind long after he had gone back to unloading the truck. His energy seemed to have awakened a part of me that I thought had faded forever, a desire that I had tried to suppress, and a longing for connection that I had been trying to ignore. The days turned into weeks, and Ethan became a constant fixture in my thoughts and in my daily routines. I often found myself looking for him, and when I didn't see him, I could not help but feel a sense of disappointment and a sense of longing. I observed him often from a distance, whether he was skateboarding down the street, working on his bike, practicing yoga in his backyard, or simply enjoying the sunshine, listening to music, humming along to some unknown tune. His energy so contagious, his smile so infectious. He radiated a carefree spirit that was utterly intoxicating. His body moving with such a grace, such a freedom, that made my heart ache with longing and with a desire to feel alive again. I found myself becoming more and more curious about him, and I started to wonder about what motivated him, about what his dreams were, what his fears were, and I yearned to know everything about him, about the boy who had slipped into my life so unexpectedly, so completely, and so powerfully. And I knew that I was in trouble, that I was in danger of losing myself all over again. My curiosity deepened, and I found myself seeking excuses to talk to him. I would walk around my garden in the evenings, hoping that he would be out, and that we could spend a few minutes just talking. One particularly warm Sunday morning, I noticed him struggling with a bicycle tire, the frustration etched on his brow as he tugged at the stubborn rubber, his face full of exasperation. He was so cute when he was annoyed. It was an involuntary urge to help that propelled me across the yard towards him. I could not resist the pull, and I knew that I was making a choice that was going to change my life forever. I called out, creating an opening before he could even respond, my voice a little breathier, my hands trembling slightly. He looked up, his bright green eyes lighting up with a smile. "Would you mind?" he asked, his voice full of genuine gratitude, his youthful charm disarming me even further. "I've never been good with this stuff," he admitted sheepishly, scratching his head, making me feel so warm, so wanted, and also so strangely young. Knew that I was making a mistake, but I could not stop myself. I was being pulled towards him with a force that was beyond my control. Kneeling beside him, I felt a giddy thrill in our proximity as our bodies were touching ever so slightly, making my heart skip a beat. His hands were clumsy, but eager to learn, and I felt an overwhelming desire to show him, to help him, to be there for him. In any way that I could, we spent the afternoon laughing and struggling together, and it felt oddly normal, and yet incredibly exhilarating, to be doing this with someone so much younger, as if we had somehow managed to find our way back to each other, as if we were connected by some invisible thread that had tied our souls together. I was not just helping him fix his bike, I was also fixing a part of myself, and it was intoxicating. I found myself smiling more than I had in years, a genuine smile that came from deep within my soul. "Thanks for the help, Claire," he said, handing me a cold drink afterwards, his eyes sparkling with a warmth that made my skin tingle. His touch like a brand on my skin. "You make this seem easy," he added, his voice full of a strange mixture of admiration and longing. "It's just practice. Anyone can do it with enough time," I replied, trying to act casual, and also trying to keep my distance, as I knew that I was getting too close, that I was starting to fall too hard. But I could not hide the warmth that was spreading through my body, the undeniable connection that I was feeling, and the hope that was starting to bubble within my heart. Something was happening, and I had no idea what it was, but I knew that it was changing me, and that it was going to change my life forever. I had to prepare myself for what was about to come next. Our interactions grew more frequent. The boundaries of age and experience began to blur, and the attraction between us grew stronger, more intense, and also more dangerous. Our conversations became longer, more meaningful, and more intimate, brimming with shared interests, with laughter, with honesty, with vulnerability, and with a connection that was becoming more and more undeniable. I found it so easy to talk to him, as if we had known each other for a lifetime, as if our souls had always been connected, and it was as if the world around us had faded away, and all that mattered were the words we were speaking, the feelings that we were sharing, and feelings that we were sharing, connection that we were both so desperate to understand. One afternoon, we found ourselves sitting on my porch, the sun setting behind us, casting warm hues of orange and pink across the horizon, creating a magical setting, as if we were the only two people on Earth, as if we had finally found a refuge where we could just be ourselves. The world around us faded, and it felt as if we were in our own private universe. He was so close, and I could feel his breath on my skin, his touch sending shivers down my spine. I knew that I was being pulled into a dangerous place, but I also knew that I was ready to follow him. "Where did you grow up, Jake?" I asked, genuinely intrigued, wanting to know more about the boy who had slipped into my life so seamlessly, wanting to understand all the aspects of the man that I was quickly falling in love with. "Where did you come from? What has shaped you? What are your dreams?" He leaned back, seemingly lost in thought, his gaze fixed on the horizon, as he watched the clouds drift lazily across the sky, the warm colors of the setting sun reflecting in his eyes. "A flat town a few hours from here," he replied, his voice soft, his eyes distant, lost in the memories. It was okay, but I always wanted to be somewhere lively, somewhere art and culture mattered, somewhere that was open to different types of people, somewhere that was not so closed off to the rest of the world. He then turned to face me, his gaze full of intensity, his voice filled with genuine emotion. "Somewhere like this," he said, glancing around my porch, his touch gentle, his gaze full of love. I felt it too. I felt that intense connection, that pull, that desire that was growing stronger with every single passing moment. "Art, you say?" I replied, my interest peaked, my heart skipping a beat, my body reacting to him, to his presence, as his words ignited a spark of desire within me, making my skin tingle and my body tremble. "What kind?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper, my heart pounding in my chest, as I knew that I was finally surrendering to him, and to the feelings that I had been trying to suppress for so long. "Mostly painting," he replied, and his enthusiasm was palpable, his face lighting up, his eyes shining with passion, his voice full of emotion. "I love the way it lets you express emotions without using words. It's like breathing to me. It's like I can finally let everything out. All the good, the bad, the joy and the pain." He smiled, that heart-melting smile that made my body ache with desire. "So I'm not good with words, but I'm great with a brush. It is how I express myself to the world. I used to paint a lot," I confessed, surprised at my own vulnerability, at the honesty that I was finally starting to embrace, at the way that I was finally letting myself be seen. "Life got in the way, I suppose. I haven't picked up a brush in years." The words were like a sigh, as I was thinking of the dreams that I had forgotten, the passions that I had ignored, the parts of myself that I had buried deep within my soul. He looked at me, his gaze full of warmth, and his voice filled with encouragement. "You should pick it up again. I'd love to see your work," he said. his face lighting up with a spark of excitement that made my heart flutter. That made me feel like I was worthy, that I was talented, and that I still had something to offer to the world. He then added, "And it would be great if you could teach me." I always did want to learn how to paint, and I laughed, finally feeling the lightness of a genuine, heartfelt emotion for the first time in what seemed like a lifetime. "My BA," I replied, not daring to fully believe that all of this could really be happening, as I knew that could really be happening, walking on a dangerous path, and that I was about to cross the line of no return. At that moment, I realized that Jake saw me as more than just a neighbor, more than just an old woman who had a garden. He saw a woman, a person with passion, depth, and with secrets, and he wanted to know all of them. He saw past my age, past my wrinkles, past my flaws, and he recognized the potential within me, something that I had long buried, a part of me that was waiting to be awakened. And that was both exciting and also utterly terrifying. I was starting to fall for him, and I knew that it was a mistake, but I could not stop myself. As the weeks faded into a blur of shared moments and laughter, our friendship deepened into something rich with unspoken energy. I caught glimpses of longing in his eyes, and I could feel a magnetic pull between us, a simmering chemistry that was both innocent and at the same time filled with a desire that I had not known how to navigate, as if we were dancing around the edges of something profound, something dangerous, and also something undeniably beautiful. It was a forbidden territory that I was being drawn towards him. One sun-drenched afternoon, after a particularly light-hearted conversation about our favorite books, our hands brushed against each other while reaching for the same book, the contact lingering just a heartbeat longer than necessary, a moment that changed everything. It was as if time stopped and the world around us faded, the air growing thick with anticipation, the tension almost palpable. And I felt that I had finally arrived at the edge of a cliff, that I was looking down at the unknown, at a path that could lead to either salvation or destruction. My breath quickened, and I found myself at the edge of something new, something thrilling, yet terrifying, an unknown world that I was both drawn to and also desperate to escape. "Jake," I started, my voice barely a whisper, my heart pounding in my chest, my body trembling. And that was when it all changed. Before I could even finish my sentence, before I could even form the words in my head, before I could even think about the consequences, he leaned in closer, compelled by an inexplicable urge to close the gap between us, to cross the line that we had been so carefully trying to avoid. Our eyes locked, and my heart skipped a beat, and he leaned in, brushing his lips softly against mine, his touch igniting a fire that was spreading like wildfire through my soul. It was a tentative kiss, filled with hesitation, but it was also full of longing, desire, and a promise of something more, something deeper, something more profound. It was a forbidden kiss, a dangerous kiss, yet somehow it felt so incredibly right, as if my soul was recognizing something that it had always been searching for, as if I had finally come home. His lips were warm, soft, and gentle, and yet they sent shivers down my spine as I took a deep breath. His scent, his touch, his presence, making my world spin out of control. And in that moment, I was completely and utterly lost. I was lost in the touch, lost in his eyes, lost in his eyes, lost in his world. And that was exactly what I had always desired, even if it was wrong. I pulled away, breathless, surprised at my own boldness, at the sheer emotions that were swirling within me, as I knew that I had crossed the line, that my life was never going to be the same, and that I was now facing a future that was full of uncertainty and danger, and I was terrified. I was a woman of 66, kissing a boy of 24, and yet, somehow, it felt so right, so normal, so incredibly natural. And that was both terrifying and natural, exhilarating. How could something so wrong feel so undeniably right? Doubts crept in as my mind replayed the kiss over and over again, trying to make sense of it all, trying to make sure that it was real, and that I had not just dreamt it all up. And I knew that if I let this desire take over, that I would be heading for disaster, but I could not control myself. I was drawn to it, like a moth to a flame. But the thrill of that moment pushed those doubts aside for just a while longer as I surrendered to the present, to the desire and to the longing that I could no longer deny. The memory of that first kiss was like a secret, a whisper in my ear, a constant reminder of the power that he held over me, and the danger that was brewing just beneath the surface. I knew then that my life was about to change, and that it was about to change in a way that I could never have imagined. I was about to cross a line that I could never uncross, and that I was heading toward a path that was full of pleasure, but also full of pain, and still I could not stop myself. I had to keep going, and I had to see where this was going to lead me. The days that followed were a dizzying dance of stolen glances, whispered confessions, and increasingly intense stolen moments. I found myself pulled into Jake's world, captivated by his youthful energy, his passion for life, and the undeniable chemistry that sparked between us. Every time our eyes met, every time our lips met, we spent more and more time together, exploring not only our connection, but also the world around us, seeking out new experiences, and creating shared memories that felt both familiar and strangely new. The lines that had once divided our worlds were slowly starting to disappear, and it was like we were both rewriting the script of our lives, creating something new, something different, and something that no one else understood. I had always been so careful, so guarded, and so reserved, but with Jake, those carefully constructed barriers just started to crumble, and I found myself acting in ways that I had never imagined, and embracing a side of myself that I thought had long been buried, a side that was sensual, that was passionate, incredibly alive. He had awakened something deep within me, something that had been waiting for a lifetime, and he was challenging everything that I thought I knew about myself, about life, and about love. And it was both terrifying and also incredibly exhilarating. It was like I was finally learning to breathe again. Our shared kisses transitioned into whispered confessions, and our growing passion ignited a fire within us, a longing for a connection that went far beyond the boundaries of simple friendship. We started to share our most intimate thoughts and feelings, revealing our fears, our vulnerabilities, our dreams, and our deepest secrets. And I was finally letting myself be seen, and I was finally allowing myself be seen, to be loved, and it was both terrifying and liberating. I had been so used to putting up a wall, to not letting anyone get too close, to trying to control every aspect of my life. But now, I was learning to let go, to be open, and to trust that I was finally with the one person who I could finally be my true self with. Our shared moments became imbued with a sense of intimacy that made my heart ache with longing. One afternoon, after a long walk together, along a hidden trail in the woods, we found ourselves back at my house, sharing a bottle of wine, our conversation soft, our touches tentative, but our desire undeniable. We were both dancing around the edges of something that was so intense, so overwhelming, and so powerful that we were both hesitant to name it, but we could not deny it any longer. As the night wore on and the wine started to flow, our touches became more frequent, more deliberate, and more intense. Jake reached out and gently took my hand, his tongue brushing over my skin in a way that sent shivers through me. And then he gently pulled me closer until our bodies were almost touching, his gaze fixed on mine, his eyes full of desire. And I knew that it was time. I had been fighting it for so long, But now, I had no more strength to resist, and I was finally ready to surrender to the feelings that had consumed me. I was ready to let him in. He leaned in, and our lips met in a kiss that was more intense than any before, filled with a passion that neither of us could deny. It was a kiss that spoke of longing, of desire, and of a love that was both powerful and also incredibly fragile. I lost myself in the moment, letting the world outside fade away as we gave in to the connection we had been building, the desire that we had been trying to ignore, and the emotions that had been threatening to consume us. I was his, and he was mine. And in that moment, that was all that mattered. And as we kissed, as our hands started to explore each other's bodies, as we tasted the desire on each other's lips, I knew that we were about to cross a new line, that we were about to take another step into that forbidden territory, and that my life was never going to be the same. The fear was still there, of course, the fear of what was to come, of what we were going to do, and also of what others would say. But I pushed it aside for now, and I allowed myself to be guided by my heart, by my desire, and by the intense need to be with this man, to be held in his arms, to be loved by him. We lost ourselves in the moment, letting the world outside fade away as we gave in to the connection that we had been building, the desire that we had been trying to suppress, and the passion that was starting to take over us completely. He touched me with such reverence, with such adoration, with such skill, that I felt like I was the most wanted and the most beautiful woman in the world. He tasted me with such passion. His kisses, a blend of urgency and gentleness. And that made me forget about my age, about my insecurities, and about my past. His hands, as they roamed over my skin, ignited a fire within me, a burning desire that made my body tremble, and his lips, as they explored mine, sent shivers down my spine, making me yearn for more. The physical connection between us was a revelation. It was like we had both been waiting for each other for a lifetime, and we were finally getting what we deserved. That night, our bodies finally came together, and it was an explosion of passion, a symphony of pleasure, an unforgettable journey that left me breathless, spent, and completely satisfied. We explored each other's bodies, we tasted each other's souls, and we lost ourselves in each other's arms as we finally allowed our desire to take control. For just one night, for just a fleeting moment of time, it was an act of rebellion and an act of acceptance. It was both beautiful and also incredibly dangerous. But it was something that I knew I would never forget, and it was everything that I had ever wanted, all rolled into one. Afterwards, we lay there, entwined, our bodies glistening with sweat, our breaths still labored, our hearts beating in unison. I looked at him, his eyes soft, his face relaxed, and I saw that he was finally at peace, and that made me want to cry. I had finally found someone that I could share my secrets with, someone that I could be myself with, someone that was not going to judge me for my past or for the feelings that I was having in that moment. He touched my face, tracing the curve of my cheek, his tongue caressing my skin. He didn't want to hide anymore. He whispered, his voice husky with passion, his body so close to mine. I felt like I could finally breathe, like I could finally be honest with myself and with the world. I want to be with you, Claire. I want to shout it from the rooftops, and I don't care what anyone says. His words filled me with a mix of hope and trepidation. I was finally ready to stop hiding, to stop running away, and I was ready to face the world with him by my side. But a part of me still feared the judgment, the condemnation, and the social stigma of our relationship. Joe, you really mean that, Jake? I asked, my voice full of doubt, as I knew that society was not going to make this easy for us, that we were not going to be allowed to just be ourselves, that our happiness would always be challenged, and that our love would always be questioned. He nodded, his eyes full of conviction, his touch sending shivers down my spine. "Yes, Claire, I do," he said, his voice full of sincerity, his gaze fixed on mine. "I'm all in. I want to be with you. I want to be with you. No matter what happens, I want to be with you forever." His words were so intense, so beautiful, and so full of love, and I could feel my doubts starting to fade, replaced with a growing sense of hope, and with a burning desire to make it all work, to make it all worked real, and to make our love a lasting testament to the power of human connection. I reached out and took his hand, my heart finally surrendering to him and to the desires that I had been trying to suppress for so long. It was a leap of faith, and a leap of faith I was ready to take it. And I knew that it would not be easy, that it was going to be a difficult road, but that it was also going to be worth it if I had him with me by my side. As the months rolled on, our shared dreams began to crystallize, transforming into something more meaningful and more enduring. We continued to explore our connection through countless conversations, through passionate kisses, and through the exploration of each other's bodies. And we were both starting to realize that we were not just lovers, but we were also best friends, soulmates, partners, and companions. And we were both ready to embrace our unique and unconventional love. We chased sunsets on the beach. We painted murals in our small town. We painted murals in our small town, danced beneath a canopy of stars, and we laughed, we loved, and we created our own little world together, filled with a joy that I had not thought was possible. We were two souls that had somehow managed to find each other in the most unexpected of places, and we were not about to let anyone or anything take that away from us. One introspective evening, as we enjoyed a quiet dinner at my house, our bodies touching ever so slightly, the candlelight casting long shadows across the room, and a sense of contentment settling around us, I felt a surge of courage, and I turned to him, my eyes searching his, my voice full of sincerity. "Jake," I said, my heart racing, "I care about you deeply. I love you so much, but I have to ask, what do you see for us in the future?" The words were out of my mouth before I could stop them. I was finally putting everything on the line, and I was desperate to know what he was thinking. If he was seeing this as a relationship, or if I was just another woman in his long line of love conquests. I was no longer hiding. I was no longer afraid of the truth. I needed to know what he really wanted. He paused, his expression thoughtful, as if weighing the significance of the moment, his eyes looking at me as if he was searching my soul. And then he replied, his voice so full of love and also full of hope. "I see us exploring together, Claire, learning about each other, growing through whatever comes our way." "You inspire me," he said, each word pregnant with sincerity, his gaze fixed on mine. "You inspire me to be a better man. You make me want to be worthy of you, and you make me want to conquer the world." He then paused, a small smile forming on his lips. "You make me want to be fearless." I felt tears pricked the corners of my eyes at his words. The love that he had shown me was finally starting to heal the wounds of my past. And I reached out and took his hand across the table, feeling the warmth spread through me, illuminating the uncertainty that had clouded my heart for so long. And it was in that moment that I knew that I had found something real, something special, and something that I did not want to ever let go of. "If I choose this, if I choose us," I whispered, my whispered voice trembling, my words carefully chosen. "It has to be all-encompassing, Jake. It has to be real, and I'm not going to settle for anything less." I knew that I was asking a lot from him, that I was asking him to take a leap of faith, that I was asking him to face all the same challenges and all the same fears that I had been facing for so long. He nodded, his eyes full of passion and also full of courage. "It can be, Claire," he assured me, his smile now full of unwavering conviction. I'm all in. I want to share my life with you. I want to share my dreams with you. I want you to share all your secrets with me. I want it all, and I'm not afraid of anything as long as we are together. As the seasons changed and the vibrant hues of autumn faded into the muted grays and whites of winter, the intensity of our love, the power of our connection, and the unwavering determination to make our relationship work only seemed to grow stronger, more profound, and more undeniable. It was like we had found our rhythm, our center, and our purpose, and we were ready to face whatever came next, knowing that we had each other and that together we could withstand any storm. We had finally found our home. We were no longer just two people from different worlds. We were now partners, lovers, and soulmates, intertwined and connected by a love that transcended age, experience, and all the conventional norms that society had tried to impose on us. A love that was pure, real, and all-encompassing. We were redefining what it meant to be together, and we were also redefining what it meant to be ourselves, learning from each other, growing with each other, and challenging each other to become the people that we were always meant to be. It was a beautiful journey. It was a beautiful dance. It was our life, and I was so grateful for every single moment of it. We chased sunsets in the mountains, painted murals on the sides of abandoned buildings, and danced beneath a canopy of stars, our bodies moving in perfect harmony as our laughter echoed in the night, and we were creating our own little world, free from all the negativity, all the judgments, and all the negativity, all the judgments, expectations, a world where all that mattered was our love, our passion, and our desire to be together. One balmy evening, we ventured to our favorite spot, a quiet hill overlooking the city, where we would often go to escape the noise of the vape world, to share our thoughts, our feelings, our hopes, and our dreams. The view was breathtaking, the city lights sparkling like stars below, a reflection of the hope and joy that we had managed to ignite in each other. As the soft breeze caressed our skin, and as the warm air settled around us like a comforting embrace, we were finally at peace, wrapped in each other's arms. I felt an overwhelming sense of contentment, a tranquility that had eluded me for so long, and I knew that even if it was just for a fleeting moment, that I had finally found what I had been searching for my entire life. I was finally complete. You know, I said softly, my voice trembling as I gazed out at the horizon, where the sky met the earth in a horizon, gentle embrace. I never thought I'd find something like this at my age, I confessed, feeling a sense of wonder, and also a touch of disbelief that all of this had finally happened to me, that I had finally found a love that was so pure, so strong, and so beautiful. He turned to face me, his eyes shimmering with affection, his smile so warm and genuine that it made my heart skip a beat. Why not? Love is timeless, Claire, he replied, his gaze locked on mine, his voice full of conviction. See it as a gift. It's never too late to experience something beautiful, right? And what we have, what we've built, is that more special than anything that I've ever experienced. His words were like a balm to my soul. They chased away the doubts and the insecurities that had been clouding my mind, and filled me with a sense of hope and with a growing belief in our power to make it work, to overcome all the challenges that we had to face. I laughed softly, feeling the warmth of his presence surrounding me, his touch sending shivers down my spine, and his love finally giving me the courage to embrace the future, whatever it might hold, and to finally live my life to the fullest, without any reservations, without any regrets, and without any fear. My bee, you're right, I said, my voice soft as I leaned in to kiss him, my heart finally surrendering to the magic of the moment. My bee, you are right. In that moment, as our lips met, as our bodies touched, as our souls intertwined, I realized that age carried no weight in the pursuit of happiness, that it was merely a number, an abstract concept that couldn't confine the depths of our connection and the intensity of our desire. It was like we had finally found our true purpose. We were meant to be together. We were destined to find this love, and it was ours to cherish and to protect. Our love was a testament to the power of human connection, a beacon of hope that could guide us through any darkness, any challenge, and any storm. As I leaned in for a kiss, the world around us faded into oblivion, the city lights melting into the night, all the noise and all the worries suddenly disappearing. The gentle warmth of his lips against mine, anchoring me firmly in the present, a place where we were simply Claire and Jake, two hearts intertwined in a beautiful dance of love that defied convention, logic, and the judgment of the world, a love that was real, and a love that was forever. By opening my heart to a younger man, I discovered a world brimming with joy, laughter, and a deep emotional connection, a world that had been hidden from me for too long, a world that had always been there, but I had been too afraid to embrace. As I looked at Jake, I saw not just a younger version of myself, but a partner who complemented my layers of experience with his vibrant spirit, his infectious enthusiasm, and his unwavering belief in us. Our relationship challenged the definitions of love and companionship, celebrating the beauty inherent in human connection, proving that love was not just a feeling, that love was also a choice, and that we could choose to love whoever we wanted to love. With Jake, I experienced a love that transcended conventional boundaries, one that proved that passion flowed freely when hearts dared to be brave, a love that was real, and a love that was true, and a love that I knew was worth fighting for, no matter what came next. And in his arms, I felt like I was finally home. As we walked hand in hand into the future, I understood that love in all its forms was worth pursuing, nurturing, and celebrating, regardless of the years that separated us. That the most beautiful stories were not the ones that followed the rules, or the ones that followed the rules, expectations of others, that it was the unexpected stories that were always worth remembering. Life had surprised me yet again, and I was ready to embrace the adventure that lay ahead, not just for myself, but for us together, for the life that we had created, for the love that we had found, and for the hope that we had both been chasing for so long. And we were not afraid to follow the path, wherever it might lead us. With each passing day, I learned to cherish not just the unpredictability of life, but also the exhilarating freedoms that love offers. A freedom from fear, a freedom from judgment, a freedom from the constraints of time, and a freedom to be ourselves. But it was Jake's youthful and scars, but it was Jake's youthful spirit that illuminated my world, and together we were painting a future rich with endless possibilities, as we knew that we could create our own happy ending. In the end, we found solace not in what others thought or what society dictated, but in the moments that made our hearts race and our souls sing. And that was what truly mattered. Love, it turned out, is not bound by age. It is an eternal dance, a tapestry waiting to be woven anew. With each courageous embrace, each stolen kiss, and each shared dream. And I was ready to dance, I was ready to love, and I was finally ready to let go of my fear and to embrace the beauty of the world and the beauty of my heart. With Jake, I was able to understand that love was a force more powerful than fear, that it could break down barriers, that it could heal old wounds, and that it could transform lives, and that love, in all its forms, was always worth fighting for, worth chasing, and worth celebrating. And I was ready to do all of that for him and for myself. We had made it, and we were finally home. As the vibrant colors of autumn faded into the muted tones of winter, a quiet unease began to settle into our lives, an almost imperceptible shift in the air, as if the universe was trying to remind us that our little bubble of happiness could not last forever, and that we were still living in a world that was not always accepting of love in its most unusual forms. The whispers and the judgments, which we had tried so hard to ignore, were growing louder, more insistent, and more frequent, like the distant rumble of thunder before a storm, and the external world began to creep into our private sanctuary, creating a tension that was becoming harder and harder to ignore. The town, once a haven of peace, now felt like a cage. The curious glances, the hushed conversations, and the subtle snubs all started to take a toll on our spirits, creating a sense of unease and making me feel like I was being constantly scrutinized, judged, and dissected. It was like I was living under a microscope, and every action, every word, and every moment that I shared with Jake was being examined and analyzed by everyone around us as if we were nothing more than specimens in a lab. We tried to maintain our optimism, to keep our heads held high, to pretend that we were not affected by the judgment, but it was hard, and we were both starting to feel the pressure and the strain of living a life that was so different from what everyone expected from us. I could see it in Jake's eyes, the way that he would sometimes look away when we were in public, the way that he would hold my hand tighter, as if he was trying to shield me from the world, and also to shield himself from the pain. He had always been so fearless, so confident, and now he was starting to look a little bit tired, a little bit worn down by it all. The small moments of intimacy that we had cherished became tinged with a new sadness, as if we both knew that our time was fleeting, that our happiness was only temporary, that the universe was conspiring to tear us apart, and that we were facing an inevitable end. Our kisses became less passionate, our touches less frequent, and our shared silences became heavier, more weighted, and more full of unspoken fears. We were both starting to close in on ourselves as the pressure of the world slowly started to erode our love. One evening, as we were preparing dinner together, a quiet ritual that had always brought us joy, I could feel the tension between us as the unspoken doubts that we were both harboring started to surface. The sound of the sizzling oil, the clinking of the silverware, and the clinking of the silverware, the familiar scent of garlic and herbs filled the air. But there was also a new undercurrent of unease, a sense of foreboding, and a growing feeling that we were about to face a storm that we would not be able to survive. We were so careful, We're both trying so hard to make it work, but it was no longer working. We were both slowly starting to fall apart. As I reached for a spice jar, my hand brushed against his, and that simple touch, once a source of comfort, now sent a shiver down my spine, my body tensing with a fear that I could no longer hide. "Are you okay, Claire?" he asked softly, his voice full of concern, his eyes searching mine, as if he was trying to see into my soul, trying to figure out what was going on in my head and in my heart. "Yeah, I'm fine," I lied, my voice trembling, my eyes avoiding his gaze, as I knew that it was not going to be enough, that I could not continue to hide from him, that I had to be honest, that I had to tell him the truth. He stepped closer, his body only inches away from mine, the warmth of his breath against my skin making my heart skip a beat. He tilted my head up to meet his gaze, his eyes filled with a mixture of love and pain, and he whispered, "You know you can tell me anything, right? You know that I will always be here for you, no matter what." His words were so familiar, so reassuring, but they also sounded so empty, so hollow, as if he was trying to convince himself, as much as he was trying to convince me. I took a deep breath, my body shaking, and finally, I said the words that I had been trying to hold back for so long. "I don't know, Jake," I whispered, my voice breaking, my words full of uncertainty, full of doubt, and full of fear. "I just don't know if this can work." And then I burst into tears. His face fell, his eyes darkening with a mixture of sadness and anger, and he stepped back, putting some distance between us, as if my words had created an invisible wall, a barrier that was now separating us, a separation that he did not know how to overcome. "Do you mean?" "No," he asked, his voice sharp, his eyes full of pain. You can't possibly mean that. We have been through so much, we have come so far. You can't just give up now. You can't just let go, not after everything that we have done. I looked at him, I looked at him, I looked at him, heart aching for both of us, as I knew that I was about to shatter the fragile world that we had so carefully created. I'm tired, Jake, I said, my voice barely above a whisper, my words full of despair. I'm just so tired of fighting, of trying to resist, of always having to look over my shoulder. I'm tired of all the judging, of all the stares, of all the whispers. I can't do this anymore. I just can't do this. And you deserve so much more than that. You deserve to be with someone who will not cause you so much pain, with someone that the world won't look at in disgust. He stepped closer, his hands reaching out to touch my face, his eyes full of a desperate plea. You're not causing me any pain, Claire. You're my happiness. You're my joy. And you are my life. And I do not care about what the world thinks. I will always choose you. I want to be with you, no matter what. And I will always fight for us, if only you will let me. His words were a balm to my soul. They were so full of love and so full of passion. And a part of me wanted to believe him. I wanted to surrender to the safety of his arms. I wanted to forget about all the fears, all the doubts, and all the pain, and to give into the love that we both felt so strongly. But another part of me knew that that would be a lie, that I was only hurting him more by holding on, that if I really loved him, I would have to set him free. It was a battle that was raging inside of me, a battle that was raging inside of me, tearing me apart as I was being pulled in two different directions. I was trying to do the right thing and also trying to follow my heart. And it was like my soul was being ripped into a million pieces. And I did not know how much more I could possibly take. But it's not fair to you, Jake, I said, shaking my head, my voice full of sorrow. You deserve so much more. You deserve someone who will not cause you all this pain. You deserve someone who will not always be judged by the false world. You deserve someone that is as young, as vibrant, and as hopeful as you are. And that person is not me. I was telling myself that I was doing the right thing, that I was doing the best for both of us, that we would both be happier if we would both be happier. We're apart, but in my heart, I knew that I was lying to myself, that I was only hurting us both even more, and that I was slowly tearing us apart, piece by piece. He was silent for a moment, his face a mixture of sadness and anger, and he looked at me, his eyes full of a desperate plea. So, that's it then. You're giving up? You're just going to let them win? You're just going to let the world tell you how you are supposed to live? He asked, his voice shaking, his eyes wet with tears, his body trembling with raw emotions. What happened to that fearless woman that I fell in love with? Where did she go? Did she just disappear along with the dream that we were building together? His words pierced through me, hitting me harder than any blow ever could, and I could not say anything. He had always believed in me, and now I was destroying everything that we had. I was letting him down. I was so weak. I was so pathetic. I was a liar. I was a cheat, and I did not deserve his love, his respect, or his time. I was nothing. I was worthless. I looked away, my heart breaking, my body trembling, and my mind reeling with confusion. I knew that I was hurting him, that I was destroying us both, but I also knew that I did not know how to stop it, that I had lost all control. I don't know, Jake, I whispered, my voice barely audible, my words filled with pain and despair. I just don't know what to do. I just don't know what to do. Can't do this anymore. And that was the final truth. I had lost all the courage to fight, and I was finally giving in to the darkness. I had lost myself. A tear rolled down his face as he turned away and walked out of the kitchen without saying another word. His steps were heavy, his shoulders were slumped, And I knew that I had just broken his heart, and also, I had just broken my own. He was now leaving, and for good, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. I stood there, alone in the kitchen, my body trembling, my heart breaking, the silence feeling heavy and oppressive. And I knew, with a certainty that was almost unbearable, that it was finally over, that our love, our dream, and our future had finally come to an end. The fear that had always lingered just below the surface was now a harsh, unforgiving reality, and I was left with nothing but the ruins of everything that I had built. I did not know what to do next. I had given up on love. I had given up on love, given up on myself, and I had given up on the hope of ever finding happiness. I was nothing. I was lost. I was just alone. The weeks that followed were a blur of sadness and despair. I continued to work at the diner, serving food to strangers, while pretending that everything was normal, that I was not dying inside. But I knew that I could not keep doing this. I had to escape. I had to run away. I had to find a way to start over again, to rebuild my life from the ashes of my broken dream. But I had no idea how. I was too broken, too weak, too exhausted to carry on. It was then that I realized that the path that I had chosen for myself was not going to lead to a happy ending. I was so busy running from the past that I had forgotten to live, and I knew that I could not keep doing this. I was not a prisoner of my own story. I was not defined by the choices that I had made. I could always make new choices. I could always rewrite my ending. I was not lost. I was just waiting to be found. It was time to go on a new journey. It was time to embrace a new chapter of my life. And I knew that it was time for me to say goodbye. The silence in my house was deafening, a stark contrast to the laughter and whispered confession that had once filled every corner, that had once made my heart feel like it was about to explode with joy, and that were now just haunting echoes in my memory. Essence of Jake, the loss of his touch, his voice, his smile, his presence, created a void that felt impossible to fill. And I was now starting to understand the true meaning of heartbreak, the real pain of losing someone you love, and the crushing realization that sometimes love is not enough. I wandered through the empty room like a ghost, my hand trailing against the walls, the furniture, and all the objects that I had once shared with him. I could still feel the lingering warmth of his body on the couch, the scent of his hair on the pillow, and the echo of his laughter in the kitchen. Every single little detail was a constant reminder of the love that I had lost and the life that I had thrown away. And with every breath, it was like I was being reminded of the pain of my past and the uncertainty of my future. I had finally managed to build a semblance of happiness with him. I had finally started to heal, and I had finally thought that I had found a path that was worth following. But now, all of that had been taken away from me, and I was left with nothing but the ruins of my broken dreams, and a heart that was aching with a sadness that threatened to consume me entirely. I spent my days at the diner, serving food to strangers, trying to keep my head above water, but my heart was no longer in it. I went through the motions of my work, forcing a smile, pretending that everything was okay, but inside, I felt like I was dying. I had become a dying, hollow shell of myself. The energy that had once made me feel so alive was now gone. The woman I had once been was now nothing more than a distant memory. I knew that I could not keep living like this, that I had to make a change, to find a way to move on. But I also knew that it was not going to be easy. I was still haunted by my past, by the choices that I had made, by all the mistakes that I had made, and I was still terrified of the future, of what was waiting for me on the other side. I was still so lost. I was still so broken. I was starting to give up all hope. One afternoon, while I was working, my phone rang. I almost did not answer it, but I had a strange feeling that I should. It was Sarah. Her voice, always so sharp and confident, now sounded soft, almost hesitant. She had not called me since that night at her house. "Claire," she said, her voice trembling, her words barely audible. I just wanted to talk to you. I want to apologize. I need to see you." I felt a mixture of anger, fear, and also a strange sense of curiosity. She wanted to apologize. After what she had done, after the things that she had said, I knew that it was probably another game, that she was probably trying to find a way to hurt me even more. But something about her tone made me think that she might be telling the truth. I had nothing to lose. Why? I asked, my voice cold and guarded. "I need to make things right, Claire," she said, her voice shaking with emotion. "I need to tell you why, and I need you to forgive me. Please, just listen." I paused for a moment, trying to figure out what to do. I knew that if I met her, that I was going to open up old wounds and also open myself up to more pain. But I also knew that I could not go on living in the past, that I needed to finally confront my demons, and that I had to finally confront my demons. Let go, even if it was the last thing that I did. "Okay," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "I'll meet you." "Where?" We met at a small cafe near the beach, a place that was far from the hustle and bustle of the city, a place that was quiet and calm, a place that would allow us to talk without fear of being overheard. I saw her from a distance, sitting at a table by the window. She looked different. She looked tired. Her face was drawn, and her eyes were full of a sadness that made my heart ache. It was as if she was suffering, as if she was just as lost and as broken as I was. As I got closer, I also noticed that she looked different. Her clothes, not as sharp as they used to be, her hair not as perfect, and her gaze not as cold and calculating. She had finally let down her guard, and she was just a woman who had been hurt and who was just a woman, now looking for some form of peace, and I felt a small spark of empathy for her. We were both victims of our own desires. She stood up to greet me, and she extended her hand, her touch gentle, her eyes full of a mix of guilt and sorrow. "Thank you for coming, Claire," she said, her voice soft, her tone surprisingly sincere. I accepted her handshake and then sat down opposite her, trying to keep myself at a distance, trying not to let her get too close, as I knew that I could not trust her, that I could not believe her words, and that I still did not forgive her for what she had done. I had to remind myself of all the pain she had caused me. I had to remember how she had tried to destroy me. We sat in silence for a moment. And then she began to talk, her voice trembling, her eyes filling with tears. She told me about her life, about her childhood, about her marriage to Jamie, and about all the pain that she had been carrying for so long. She told me about her insecurities, her fears, her doubts, and about the reasons that had led her to react the way she had. She told me about how she was just trying to protect herself and also her family, and how that fear had completely taken over her. About how she had been trapped in a loveless marriage for so many years, how she had always felt like she was not enough, and how she had been desperate to hold on to the little power that she had, as she was so afraid of being alone, of being forgotten, of being replaced. She also spoke about her loneliness and how she had seen in me the spark of something that she could never possess. She was so sad, so broken, and I was starting to realize that, in a way, we were more alike than I had ever thought, and that we were both victims of the same forces. She did not excuse her actions. She did not try to justify what she had done. She did not try to diminish the pain that she had caused me. She just wanted me to understand. She just wanted me to know that she was not the monster that she had seemed to be. And as I listened to her words, to her confessions, and to her tears, I began to understand her pain, and I began to feel something akin to empathy, a seed of forgiveness beginning to sprout within my heart. "I'm sorry, Claire," she said, her voice choked with emotion, her eyes wet with tears. "I'm so sorry for everything that I did. I was so angry, so hurt, and so insecure. I had no right to treat you like that, and you did not deserve any of that. You were right about everything. All those years ago, I have been trying to do everything by myself, and I have always been so afraid to let go and to ask for help. You have to forgive me." I was silent for a moment, staring at her vulnerability disarming me completely. I could see the pain, the regret, and the loneliness in her eyes, and I knew that she was telling the truth. She had finally let down her guard, and she was finally being honest with herself, and also with me, and that was all that I could have ever asked for. I knew then that I could not continue to hold on to my anger, that I had to let go of the pain, and that I had to forgive her, not just for her sake, but also for my own. I knew that I could not heal, that I could not move on, unless I finally let go of the bitterness that I had been carrying for so long, and that it was finally time for me to make peace with my past, with her, Jamie, and with myself. I took a deep breath and reached out to take her hand. My touch gentle, my heart finally starting to heal. "It's okay, Sarah," I said, my voice soft, my gaze full of understanding. "I forgive you. You were just trying to protect yourself, and I understand that." It was a slow, cautious move, and my heart was still a little hesitant, but it was also full of hope. I had to let go of the anger and to embrace the peace that I had been searching for so long, and that was finally within my grasp. But I think we both deserve so much more than this, I added, my voice full of a newfound strength. We sat there for a while longer, talking, sharing our experiences and our vulnerabilities, and as we spoke, I felt the walls that had once divided us start to crumble, replaced with a sense of empathy, with an understanding of the complex past that had led us to this moment, and we were both finally learning to let go, and to forgive each other, and also to forgive ourselves. We finally said goodbye, promising to keep in touch, and as I walked away, I felt a sense of peace wash over me, a feeling that I was finally free, that I was no longer defined by my past, that I was finally ready to embrace the future with open arms. I had made peace with my demons, and I was now ready to write my own happy ending. And it was in that moment that I knew that I had finally found my true strength, that I had finally learned to love myself, and that I was ready to move on. Meanwhile, in Los Angeles, Jake had been spending his days immersed in his art, trying to understand his own pain and his own confusion by using the canvas as his mirror, as he poured all his emotions, all his vulnerabilities, and all his hopes into the strokes of his brush. He was creating, he was building, and he was slowly starting to find his own path towards healing. He had finally found the strength within himself, and he was not about to let anything take it away from him. He also returned to teaching swimming, and through his work, he was able to give back to the community that he had come to call his own. He was using his experiences, both the good and the bad, to help others, teach them, to inspire them, and to show them that they too could find their way through the darkness. He had found his purpose, and that was enough for him. He was not going to be defined by his past, and he was going to embrace his future with all the hope that he could find. And as time went by, as the seasons continued to change, as the leaves fell and the snow began to fall, both Jake and I had learned to navigate the turbulent waters of our lives, and we were both starting to find our own way forward. We were no longer the people that we had been before. We had both changed, we had both grown, and we had both come to accept the messy, imperfect nature of our existence, and we were both ready to face whatever came next with courage, with wisdom, and with hearts that were finally full of love. The winter months in Portland were a time of quiet reflection, a period of introspection that allowed me to delve deeper into the complexities of my heart, my mind, and my soul. The cold, crisp air, the falling snow, and the long dark nights seemed to mirror the journey that I had been on. A journey that had taken me through the darkest depths of despair and into the highest peaks of hope. I was still learning to navigate my new reality. I was learning to embrace all the broken pieces of my past, and I was trying to piece myself together as if I were putting together a complex puzzle. A puzzle that had always eluded me and that I had to figure out if I had to figure out ever wanted to move forward. I was slowly starting to heal. I spent my days in the bookstore, surrounded by the comforting scent of old paper and the quiet hum of the city as I poured my thoughts, my experiences, and my desires onto the page. I wrote about everything from the simple beauty of nature to the intense complexity of human emotions. And through my words, I was not only telling my story, I was also trying to find myself. It was like I was using my art to understand the woman that I had been, the woman that I was, and the woman that I was finally going to be. I wrote about Mike, about Jamie, about Sarah, about Tony, about Mabel, about Jake, and about all the people who had touched my life in one way or another. All the people that had helped me get to the place that I was at. And as I wrote, I slowly began to realize that I was not alone, that there were so many others out there, all struggling with their own demons, all searching for the same peace that I was so desperately seeking. I also spent a lot of time alone, thinking about my life, about all the choices that I had made, and about the long and winding road that had finally led me to this point. I realized that my past had not broken me. It had only made me stronger. It had given me a new purpose and a new appreciation for all the things that truly mattered. I was no longer running away from my mistakes. I was finally embracing them. I was finally learning from them. And I was finally learning from them. Finally starting to forgive myself. It was a slow and difficult process, but I was taking those first steps, and it was enough. I was also spending more time with Tony. He was my best friend, my rock, my confidant, my partner, and as the seasons had changed, my love for him had also grown stronger, more profound, and more undeniable. He had always been there by my side, supporting me, encouraging me, and making me laugh, even when I felt like I was about to fall apart. And it was his love, his patience, and his unwavering belief in me that had given me the strength to keep going. I had always been so drawn to his kindness, his loyalty, and his unwavering belief that I was worthy of love. Even when I had a hard time believing it myself, he was the opposite of all the men that I had ever loved before. He was always truthful, and he was always willing to share his vulnerability, and that had slowly but surely healed the broken pieces of my heart. We worked side by side at our new bar, the Lighthouse, a place that felt so warm and welcoming, filled with a sense of community and a sense of hope. I had always dreamed of having my own place, a place where I could share my thoughts with the world, where I could meet other people, and where I could give back to the community that had welcomed me with open arms. And Tony had managed to make that dream a reality. It was also a place where I could help others, where I could listen to their stories, and where I could offer them some hope and perhaps help them see the beauty of the world, even in the midst of the darkness. It was also a place where I could finally feel at peace. It was like I had found my true calling, and I was like I had found my true calling. Finally, where I was meant to be. The bar became a local favorite, a place where people from all walks of life came together to share stories, to laugh, to cry, and to find some respite from the chaos of the outside world. It was our creation, a testament to our shared dreams, and a celebration of the power of love, friendship, and community. And I was so proud to be a part of it, to finally be a part of something that was meaningful, and that was also real. I spent my nights with Tony, talking, sharing our experiences, and building a future that was based on honesty, trust, and mutual respect. Our relationship had changed. It was not based on lust or desire or the forbidden thrill of secrecy. It was based on something that was so much more powerful, something that was so much more lasting. It was based on a deep and profound sense of love. We had gone through a lot of pain. We had both made mistakes. We had both stumbled along the way. But now, we were finally together, and we were finally ready to embrace the future with open arms, without fear, and without any regret. And we both knew that together we could face anything. We could overcome any challenges, and we could build a life that was full of purpose, and we could build a life that was full of purpose. Also, full of joy. We had finally found what we had been searching for all our lives. Meanwhile, in Los Angeles, Jake had been spending his time working on his art, creating bold, powerful, and emotionally charged paintings that resonated with people all over the world. Paintings that spoke of love, loss, longing, desire, pain, heartbreak, and also hope. His art had become his voice, his way of expressing all the complex emotions that had been swirling within him. He was finally ready to use his art to heal, not just himself, but also others. He also continued to teach swimming, passing on his knowledge, his skills, and also his love for the water. And he became a mentor for many young people, helping them find their own strength, their own confidence, and their own way in the world. He was giving back to the community. He was making a difference, and he was slowly starting to feel whole again. He was starting to feel like he finally had some sense of purpose and also some sense of meaning. He had not forgotten about Aviva. He still carried her in his heart as a reminder of the lessons that he had learned and the love that he had lost. He knew that she was probably living a good life, that she was probably happy, and that she was finally free. He did not want to intrude. He did not want to stir up old feelings or bring back the pain. He was letting her go. He was accepting that they were not meant to be together, and he was moving on with it to be together. His life, trying to become a better man, a stronger man, a man that was worthy of her love, even if he had lost her forever. He had also finally made peace with the fact that their love was a beautiful, but also a fleeting moment in time, a powerful connection that had changed both of their lives forever, and that it was never meant to last. He was content to let her be, to let her go, and to carry her memory in his heart, knowing that she would always be a part of him, and that he would always be a part of him, would always love her from a distance. He was a survivor. He was a good man. He was finally free, and he was finally moving on. One evening, after a particularly long and arduous day, as I was sitting at my desk trying to put the final touches on my first book, my phone rang. I almost did not answer it. I thought that it was just Tony, and I was not in the mood to talk. I was feeling tired and drained. I was just not up for it. But for some reason, something made me reach out for the phone and pick it up. It was an unknown number. As I put the phone to my ear, I heard a familiar voice, a voice that I had not heard in years, but one that had the power to make my heart skip a beat. The voice said, a soft, gentle whisper that made my skin tingle and my body tremble. It's Jake. I'm in town. I was hoping that you would agree to meet with me. It's been a long time, I know, and I have a lot to explain. My heart skipped a beat. My hands started to tremble. All the old memories, the old feelings, and the old desires came rushing back all at once, flooding my mind and making my body react as if I had been suddenly transported back to that pool, to the sound of the crashing waves, to his touch, and to the feeling of being in his arms. It was as if he had come back to haunt me, to remind me of everything that I had lost, and of all the things that I had left unsaid. I took a deep breath and tried to force my voice to remain calm. What do you want, Jake? I asked, my voice still trembling my words full of a strange mixture of longing and fear. "Why are you here?" "I just needed to see you, Ava," he said, his voice full of emotion. "I needed to know that you were okay. I also needed to say goodbye. I needed to tell you the truth and to finally let you know how much you meant to me." And in that moment, I knew that I could not refuse him. I had to meet him. I had to know what he had to say. I had to face him one last time in order to finally put this chapter of my life to rest. I had to know what the future held for both of us. "Okay," I said, my voice barely audible, my body trembling with a mix of anticipation and fear. "Let's meet tomorrow at the bookstore at noon," he agreed, his voice full of gratitude. And with that, we hung up, leaving me there, alone once more, my heart pounding in my chest, my mind racing with all the possibilities, and my body trembling with a mixture of fear and also a strange sense of excitement, as I knew that something big was about to happen. I was finally about to face my past, and I was finally about to discover what the future held for me. And I was terrified, but I also knew that I was ready. The following day, the following day, the following day, hours crawled by like minutes, each second feeling heavier, more significant, and more pregnant with expectation than the last. The bookstore, normally a sanctuary of peace, now felt like a battleground, a place where I would finally have to confront all my demons and all the choices that had led me to this point. And I was terrified of what the outcome was going to be. I tried to focus on my work, to organize the shelves, to arrange the books, to try and create a sense of normalcy, but my mind was constantly wandering to Jake, wondering what he was thinking, what he was feeling, and what he was going to say. I wanted to run away, to disappear, and to hide from the pain that I knew was waiting for me. But I also knew that I had to face it. I had to be strong. I had to be brave. I had to be ready. When the clock finally struck noon, I saw him walking through the door, his face etched with a mixture of hope and apprehension, his eyes scanning the room, as if he hating the room, as if he were searching for something that he had lost. But he had finally found it in the familiarity of my presence. He looked different, his youthful energy now tempered with a touch of weariness, and his eyes, once so full of mischief, now held a mix of sadness, regret, and also a deep and profound understanding, and that was both terrifying and also a little comforting. My heart skipped a beat, my body trembled, and I felt a strange mix of longing and also fear. I took a deep breath and also fear, forced myself to remain calm, to remain professional, and to try and keep my emotions at bay. But it was no use. He had always had that power over me, and now he was back, and my heart was once again surrendering to him. Despite all my efforts to push him away, we met in the back of the store, in a small alcove surrounded by towering stacks of books, a place where we could finally be alone, a place where we could finally be honest with ourselves and with each other. The air around us was thick with tension and anticipation, as if the weight of our past and also the uncertainty of our future was all finally converging in that small, quiet space. We did not speak for a moment. We just stared at each other, our eyes communicating all the unspoken words, all the complicated feelings, and all the secrets that had been lingering between us. I knew that this was going to be our final chapter, the last scene in our story. And I wanted to make sure that we both said everything that we needed to say. I wanted to make sure that we both left without any regrets, with open hearts, and with a sense of peace. "Thank you for coming, Ava," he said, his voice soft, his eyes full of a mixture of sadness, regret, and also a lingering spark of love. "I know that I don't deserve it, and that I have no right to ask this of you, but I just had to see you again. I had to hear your voice, to see your face one last time before I finally move on, and to apologize for everything that I have done." He paused, his voice breaking, as he was now allowing himself to show me his vulnerability, to be honest about the pain that he had been trying to hide. I never wanted to cause you, Ave, I never wanted to cause you so much pain. You were my friend, my confidant, and my inspiration. But I was selfish, I was foolish, and I was blinded by my own desires. And now I have to live with that for the rest of my life. I looked into his eyes, and I saw the truth in his words, the regret that he was feeling, the guilt that he was carrying, and also the love that he had tried so hard to suppress. And my heart finally softened, as I knew that I had to forgive him, not just for him, but also for myself. I was so for myself, so tired of holding on to all that anger, all that pain, and all that bitterness. I took a deep breath, and finally I spoke, my voice trembling, but also full of a newfound strength. I know, Jake, I said, my eyes full of tears, my words filled with a mixture of sadness and compassion. I know that you never meant to hurt me. We were both just lost, and we were both just trying to find our way in a world that was so full of pain, so full of confusion, and so full of lies, and so full of lies. Sometimes I paused and took a deep breath. Sometimes we make mistakes. It's part of what it means to be human, to be flawed, to be imperfect, and to be free. He looked at me, his eyes widening with a strange mixture of relief and also surprise, as if he had not expected me to show him this kind of understanding. "You're not angry?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I smiled, a small, bittersweet smile that reached my eyes. "No, Jake," I said, my voice calm, my heart at peace. "I'm not angry. We were both just trying to find something that was missing in our lives, and we just happened to meet along the way. We shared something that was real, that was beautiful, that was intense, and that was also incredibly powerful. And I will never regret that. But now, it's time for us to move on. It's time for us to find our own paths, to create our own destinies, and to finally make peace with ourselves and with the choices that we have made." I had finally accepted our past and also our future, and I was ready to finally embrace it, whatever it might be. He nodded, his eyes full of understanding and also a touch of sadness, and he reached out to take my hand, his touch as gentle as the first time we had ever met. "Thank you, Ava," he said, his voice soft. "Thank you for everything, your honesty, for your strength, and for the love that you had shown me. You taught me so much, and you changed my life forever. And I will never forget you, and I will never forget everything that we have shared together." His words were like a balm to my soul, as I knew that he finally understood that we were both on the right path, and that we were both finally ready to move on. Neither, Jake," I said, my voice soft, my eyes full of love, and also full of a sense of gratitude. "I will never forget you either, and I will always remember the time that we shared together as a beautiful memory in the story of my life. And I will always be grateful for the lessons that you have taught me too." It was a beautiful moment. It was a beautiful moment. Bittersweet goodbye, a final goodbye, and I was finally able to be at peace. We talked for a while longer, sharing our hopes for the future, our dreams for our new lives, and our deepest secrets. And as we talked, the past began to fade away, replaced with a sense of calm and a sense of understanding. We had both finally managed to make peace with each other and also with ourselves, and we were both finally ready to let go and to move on into the next chapter of our lives. The afternoon sun started to fade, casting long shadows across the bookstore. I stood up, ready to leave, and Jake did too, his eyes mirroring my own sense of peace and also of acceptance. We walked towards the door, and as I turned to look at him one last time, I smiled. I was ready. He looked at me, his eyes full of love, and his smile full of hope, and he reached out and gently took my hand, and he said, "You know, Claire, You were always more than enough, you were always perfect, and you were always worth fighting for. You just needed to see it yourself. And now, I finally believe that you finally do. You're going to be okay, he added with a wink. And I'm so proud of you. And with that, he leaned down and kissed me. A final kiss. A gentle kiss. A kiss that was full of love, gratitude, and also full of a deep sense of peace. A final goodbye to the past. A farewell to the ghost that had haunted me for so long. We were finally free, and that was all that mattered. I walked out of the bookstore, leaving Jake behind, but also carrying him with me, in my heart and in my soul. I was no longer afraid of the future. I was no longer running away from my past, and I was finally ready to face whatever came next, knowing that I was finally free. I was finally myself, and I was finally ready to write my own story. And so, that was exactly what I did. In the years that followed, my life became a testament to the power of love, forgiveness, and redemption. Tony and I continued to work together at the lighthouse, and also as partners in life, supporting each other, loving each other, and creating a life that was full of meaning, full of purpose, full of love, and full of laughter. And I was finally content. I had found my peace. I had finally learned how to love again. I had finally learned how to live again. And I had finally found my happy ending. And it was so much more than I could have ever imagined. Right, sharing my stories with the world, my words, reaching out to countless people, inspiring them, empowering them, and showing them that it was possible to find love, hope, and joy, even in the darkest of times. And it was my way of giving back to the world for all the blessings that I had received. And Jake, well, I never saw him again, but I always knew that he was okay, that he was painting, and that he was living his life to the fullest, and that he was finally at peace. A mark on my soul, and his love, even though it was short-lived, had changed my life forever. And I would always be grateful for that. My life became a tapestry of all my experiences, both the good and the bad, the joys and the sorrows, the joys, triumphs, and the defeats, all coming together to create something meaningful, something beautiful, and something that was all my own. I had finally learned that love was not a destination. That love was a journey, and that even though the road was a journey, not always smooth, the destination was always going to be worth it. And I knew that I was finally where I was meant to be. I had finally found myself, and I was finally home.